The air was heavy with the scent of blood and pine. Tula crouched behind a ridge of rock, her breath steady despite the chaos unfolding beneath her. Flames flickered at the edges of the valley, where the warriors of Elunak clashed with the armored men of the south. Steel rang in the air, singing a brutal song of war. Arrows darted through the sky like blackbirds, and the cries of the wounded howled across the forest. She tightened her grip on her obsidian-edged spear. Her dark braid clung to her sweat-slicked back, tangled with soot and blood. Crimson war paint streaked her face, lines that stood for vengeance and protection in her people's tradition. Though it had begun to smear, her resolve did not waver. The Southern army had crossed the forbidden river once more. They came like insects, swarming, with banners of gold and red, seeking wood, water, and dominion over the wild. But the forest did not forgive trespassers, and neither did Tula. She moved like a shadow between the trees, surveying the battlefield. Her people were pushing back the enemy, their arrows finding marks, their axes biting through armor. Her sharp eye scanned for someone, no ordinary soldier, but a man with finer garments, a bearing of command. Rumors had reached them days before. A high-ranking noble, perhaps even a prince, was among the Southern party. The blood of her father boiled in her veins. He had been slain by Southerners in a raid 5 winters past, his body found broken near the banks of the frozen river. Since that day, Tula had sworn her life to vengeance, and now the gods had offered her the chance. She spotted a figure on the hill, surrounded by wounded men and a handful of guards. His armor shimmered faintly despite the soot, and a banner trailed behind him, crimson with a golden hawk. That was her target. She signaled to her hunting group, and they descended like wolves. The skirmish that followed was swift and merciless. Elunak warriors, painted in earth tones and clad in hide and bone, struck with ruthless precision. The Southern guards fell one by one. The noble tried to flee. He ran toward the rocky edge of the valley, where the forest gave way to cliffs. Tula gave chase. He stumbled, falling against a jagged boulder, blood soaking through his side. His helmet had been lost in the chaos, revealing tousled dark hair and a youthful face marred by blood and ash. She closed in, spear at the ready. When his gaze met hers, she hesitated. His eyes were ice blue, sharp, but dazed. There was no hatred in them, no fear either, just confusion, pain, and something that made her lower her weapon a fraction. "Who are you?" she demanded. He blinked, his lips moved, but no words came. His head tilted slightly as if struggling to comprehend her language or his own name. Tula, she turned. Heron, her cousin and fellow warrior, approached quickly. His blade dripped with blood, and his expression was grim. "You found him?" he asked, eyes flicking to the wounded noble. "He's important. Look at that armor. I think he's lost his memory." Tula replied quietly. "Then all the better. We end him now. He's Southern, not yet." She met Heron's glare. "We may get answers. If he's Highburn, he knows more than any scout. Let me question him." Heron hesitated, then gave a curt nod. "Have it your way, but don't grow soft." Together, they bound the man's hands and carried him to the camp in the heart of the forest, where the tribe gathered after the battle. The Elunak camp was a circle of fire and shadow beneath the ancient trees. Children clung to their mothers, warriors sang victory songs to the beat of war drums. Smoke curled into the night, and the scent of herbs and roasted meat mingled with blood. Tula brought the prisoner to the healing tent. The elder healer, Mora, examined him with wrinkled hands and sharp eyes. "He's lucky to be breathing," Mora muttered, cleaning the gash at his ribs. "But there is no wound to his head. Strange, this forgetfulness." He called himself Kaelen, Tula said, a Southern name. Mora confirmed, likely noble. Later that night, Kaelen awoke. By the fire, his hands were no longer bound, but 2 guards sat nearby. He watched the flames in silence until Tula sat beside him. "You remember nothing?" she asked. He looked at her, eyes calm. "Only my name, Kaelen. Why did your army cross the river?" He shook his head slowly. "I don't know. I don't even know where I am." She studied him. There was sincerity in his voice and sadness. "Are you pretending?" "No." Silence stretched between them. In the distance, an owl hooted. "My people want you dead." She said plainly, "I understand. But I don't know why I hesitated." He gave her a faint smile. "Because you saw I was already broken." She looked away, unsettled. Days passed. Kaelen remained under watch, but Tula visited often. He asked questions about the forest, The tribe, the stars. He did not act like a prisoner. Children approached him, drawn to his gentle voice and the songs he hummed. He drew with charcoal on bark animals, trees, faces. One day, he handed Tula a picture, a bird with a broken wing, still trying to fly. She said nothing, but kept it in her tent. Do you believe in fate? He asked her once. I believe in vengeance and mercy. She didn't answer. One night, an elder council convened. Tula stood before them with Heron. He must die, said Elder Nakar. He is the son of our enemy. We don't know that, Tula argued. He remembers nothing. He's not a threat. He is a symbol. If we spare him, we look weak. Heron remained silent. He had grown uneasy, watching Tula change. She's lost in him. One of the elders whispered, blinded, but Morris stepped forward. Sometimes the forest spares a life for a reason. They granted Tula 3 more days, then a decision would be made on the second night. Tula found Kaelen at the edge of the camp, looking up at the stars. I dreamed I was flying, he murmured, above a burning forest. She stood beside him. Maybe it was a memory, maybe. He turned to her. Will you be the one to kill me? Tula didn't reply, but her hand reached out, and for the first time, she touched his. The forest was never truly silent. Even in the hours between midnight and dawn, the trees whispered to one another, and the wind carried ancient songs. The Elunak believed the forest spoke to those who listened, that it mourned, warned, or welcomed, depending on the hearts of those who walked beneath its canopy. Tula sat alone in the shadow of the elder tree, its bark weathered and hollowed by time. She had come here often as a child, when nightmares of war first began to invade her sleep. Her father used to bring her here, telling her that the spirits of warriors past lived within the roots. Tonight, she sought answers, but the wind gave none. Kaelen's presence in the village had begun to change the rhythm of things. Where once he was feared, now he was merely watched. The children continued to slip away from their mother's gazes to sit beside him while he sketched animals and birds with black charcoal. The elders did not like it, but they said little. He had begun helping with simple chores, carrying water, tending the fire, fixing broken tools. His hands, once meant to carry swords or scrolls, now bore the nicks and soot of the Elunak daily life. Tula noticed the changes, and with them came an unease. Each time he laughed with a child or thanked an old woman for herbs, she felt something tightening in her chest. She should not have brought him here, and yet, he did not belong to them. But he no longer belonged to the world he came from either. The stars look different from here, Kaelen said one night. They sat near the riverbank, the forest stretching endlessly around them. They are the same stars, Tula replied, hugging her knees. But the sky is darker, purer. You can see more of them. You speak like a scholar? He smiled faintly. Maybe I was. I see things and I feel I once knew their names. But now they are strangers like I am to myself. She said nothing, but her hand drifted near his, brushing lightly. Not an accident. He turned toward her, eyes searching. Do you still want to kill me? Tula stiffened. I would understand if you did. He continued softly. It would be fair. No, she murmured. I don't want to kill you, but I don't know what I want instead. Kaelen looked back at the stars. I dream often now of what? Fire, screaming, steel, a crown. He paused. And a woman's voice calling my name, but not yours. A stone fell in her chest. The next day, scouts returned with news. Southern soldiers had crossed the southern ridge again, this time flying black banners trimmed with gold. They were searching for someone, possibly for Kaelen. The elders called another council. Tula stood before them, jaw tight. They come for him, said Elder Nakar. We must not let him fall into their hands. You mean to kill him? Tula asked. To protect us all. They will not leave peacefully, Mora intervened. He is still our guest. He has done no harm. He is a seed, Nakar growled, and seeds grow into kings, into war. We could send him away, Tula said, before they come. To where? The forest will not hide him forever. The argument continued late into the night. In the end, they agreed on one final condition. Kaelen was to be exiled. Tula was to lead him beyond the Whispering Pass by the next full moon. After that, he would be no longer the tribe's concern. Tula found him carving a bird into the trunk of a fallen tree. We have to leave, she said. He turned slowly. So it is decided. They would have killed you. Kaelen nodded. Will you come with me? Silence. I will take you as far as the pass, she said at last. Then you're on your own. His smile was sad but grateful. That is more than I deserve." They left the next night. No songs were sung for them, no one waved farewell. Tula wore the dark cloak of a forest scout. Kaelen, dressed in simple leather, looked no different from a common hunter. They moved through the woods like ghosts, avoiding the paths the Elunak normally walked on at night. They spoke little. By day, they listened for danger. On the third day, as they neared the highlands, they heard the hounds, scouts. Tula whispered, "Southern, trained beasts." Kaelen drew a small knife. "I'll lead them away, you'll die. They won't catch both of us." Tula grabbed his wrist. "Don't be noble, be smart." She led him off the path, deeper into the canyon. There, they hid beneath a fallen stone bridge. Listening as soldiers passed above, Kaelen watched her. "In the darkness, you saved me, again. Don't make me regret it." "I don't think I will." That night, as they camped beside a mountain spring, Kaelen spoke without looking up. "I think I know who I am." Tula froze. "My name is Kaelen Dareth, third son of King Varan. I remember the Hall of Mirrors, my mother's voice, my brothers, the rebellion." She stared at him. "You are a prince." "I was." "Then you lied." "No, I didn't remember. Until now." "Do you remember why your people came?" He hesitated. "They wanted to build a fortress near the river, a stronghold against the tribes." Tula's hands curled into fists. "But I came to stop them. I spoke against it in council. I said the forest would never yield. My father ignored me." "Then why were you there?" "Because I ran away. I left my post. I couldn't stand the war." "Cowardice, maybe. Or maybe I chose peace." Tula rose. She couldn't look at him. Her heart felt like bark cracked dry. "Ready to splinter." "You should go," she said. "I will." At the Whispering Pass, dawn painted the mountains gold. Kaelen stood on the ridge, looking back at her. She had followed him all the way here, though they hadn't spoken since the night before. "This is where I go alone," he said. She nodded. "I don't know where the path ends," he admitted. "None of us do." He held out something, a charcoal, drawing her face, fierce and soft at once. Tula took it with trembling fingers. "Will I see you again?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped forward and kissed him, not with promise, but with goodbye. Then she turned and vanished into the trees. The wind beyond the Whispering Pass was harsher than any Kaelen had known in the forest. It swept through the jagged valleys like a blade, tearing at his cloak and stinging his eyes with dust. Days passed without shelter, and the mountains offered no welcome to a son of the south returning from exile. But he pressed on. He did not sleep well. The nights were long and haunted, not by beasts or memories of battle, but by dreams of her, of Tula. She came to him in the silence between heartbeats, in the flicker of the campfire's dying flame. In the rustle of leaves he could almost believe were whispers. He remembered the way her eyes looked when she was angry, sharp and burning, like a hawk before the strike. But he remembered, too, the softer moments, when she stared into the fire without speaking, or when her fingers brushed his with a hesitation that said more than words ever could. There had been something sacred in those moments, something real, and now it was gone. When Kaelen finally reached the Crown Lands, no trumpets heralded his return. He entered through the southern gate, his clothing dusty and torn. No escort, no title. The guard stared, uncertain, then paled when they recognized his face. Word spread like fire. Within hours he was led before the court. The silver throne hall of Alvareth gleamed with cold splendor. High columns of marble stretched like frozen rivers toward the domed ceiling, where golden chandeliers burned night and day. The courtiers whispered behind embroidered sleeves. His brothers stood to the side. Talon, the firstborn, his jaws set like stone. Mareth, the second, always watching, and on the throne sat King Varan, his father, older now, but not weaker. His crown, a circlet of dark steel wreathed in smoke-shaped silver, cast shadows over his face. He looked at Kaelen not as a father greets a lost son, but as a general assesses a deserter. "So," he said, "you live?" Kaelen bowed. "I do." "Where have you been?" "In the forest, with the Elunak." Murmurs rippled through the court. "They held you prisoner." "No, they saved me, healed me." He hesitated. "Sheltered me." The king's eyes narrowed. "And what did you give them in return?" "My trust." "Silence." "You were presumed dead," said Talon. "There were ceremonies, mourning." Kaelen looked at his brother. "Did you mourn me?" Talon did not answer. "You abandoned your post," King Varan said. "You dishonored the throne." "I tried to stop a war," Kaelen said, louder now. "I spoke against the stronghold. You would not listen, so I went to see the truth for myself. You fled like a coward." "I chose peace." Varan's voice was cold steel. And what did that earn us? The Elunak attack our builders, they raid our borders, they burn our banners, we burn their trees, Kaelen said, we poison their rivers, we carve roads through their sacred groves. You speak like one of them. I speak like someone who has seen beyond this palace. The king rose slowly. You will be silent, Kaelen straightened. I will not, the room was still. Even the chandeliers seemed to hold their breath. Varan studied his son. Very well, you are no longer a prince, no longer of this court, you have no voice here. Kaelen's chest rose and fell. He bowed once, then I speak as a man and, as a man, I say this, the war you build will destroy us, not by fire but by the silence that follows. He left the hall without waiting for permission. The weeks that followed were quiet, but filled with watching eyes. Kaelen remained in the city, confined to a wing of the palace but not imprisoned. His mother, Queen Lorraine, visited him often. She cried when he spoke of the forest. She touched his scars and whispered old lullabies. But she did not speak against the king. No one did. He was given food, clothes, books, but no freedom. Until the day the messenger came. It was late, the corridors were nearly empty. A young palace page, no older than 16, slipped into Kaelen's chamber, eyes wide and frightened. Someone left this, the boy whispered, pressing a scroll into his hand. Kaelen unrolled it. The symbol was simple, a broken wing drawn in ash. Below it, a single line, they've come to the sacred grove, they've lit fire to the roots, Tula. He left that night. The forest was not the same. Where once there had been green, now there was black. The trees moaned in the wind, their branches curled like dying fingers. Smoke hung low, a shroud over the sacred lands. Kaelen moved through it like a phantom, his heart pounding with every step. He reached the grove by nightfall, or what remained of it. The great elder tree, the one Tula had once sat beneath, was gone, only its charred trunk remained, a skeleton against the stars, and she was there. Tula stood among the ashes, her cloak whipping in the wind, her face streaked with soot. Her eyes met his without surprise. You came, she said. I had to. I didn't send for you, you didn't have to. They stood there, the silence between them louder than war drums. I told them you were gone, she said, that you never remembered who you were. I did, and I came back, and I spoke for you. For your people. She looked at him, something raw in her expression. Did they listen? No. Then why come back here? Because I couldn't stay away, because he paused, because this is where I found myself, because of you. Her eyes shimmered. But she did not cry. They killed Mora, she said. Kaelen felt the ground sway beneath him. When the day the fire came, she tried to protect the tree. They ran her through. I'm sorry. Tula looked at him for a long time, then she stepped forward and placed a hand against his chest. Your heart still beats like theirs, she whispered. It also beats for you. That broke something. She fell into his arms, not like a lover but like a tree falling after the last swing of an axe. He held her tightly, as if he could shield her from every blade, every flame. They stood like that for a long time. The war would come, that much was certain, but for now, in the heart of the broken forest, under a sky that still dared to hold stars, Kaelen and Tula stood together. Not as prince and warrior, but as two souls who had once been lost and now, for a moment, were found. The rains came to nights after the battle, soft at first, just a mist brushing the leaves, then harder, until the ash was washed from the ground and the blood from the roots. The forest, though scarred, drank deeply, and in that quiet grief, it began to breathe again. Tula woke beneath a canopy of dripping branches, her body aching but whole. Her spear rested beside her, chipped and worn, across the clearing. Kaelen slept curled near the fire, wrapped in furs soaked by the storm. The sword they had buried still marked the place where Talon had fallen. Now a small mound of wild flowers surrounded it, unnatural in their speed. The forest was remembering. In the days that followed, the tribes began to disperse. Some returned to the mountain passes, others to the river valleys. The wine dwellers left last, their soft-voiced songs lingering in the trees. No one spoke of victory, only survival. The Elunak remained. So did Kaelen. He had not asked to stay. Tula had not asked him to leave. They moved together in silence, rebuilding what had been burned. It was not peace, not yet, but it was something close. Kaelen helped mend huts, plant saplings, carry the wounded. He learned to listen more than he spoke, and slowly, the tribe softened around him. Children followed him again. asking about cities and songs. One elder let him sit in a circle of firelight. Even Ithan nodded once when Kaelen passed. Tula watched it all with quiet pride. And quiet fear, because something inside her still said, "This cannot last." A month later, a raven arrived from the south. It carried a scroll with the royal seal broken and burned at one edge. Kaelen read it without a word, then handed it to Tula. "King Varan is dead." The words echoed. Kaelen looked into the trees. "Mareth has taken the throne. He offers peace." Tula read the letter again. There was no warmth in the words, no apology, only calculation. "He wants you back," Kaelen nodded, "to serve as emissary, to prove that the war is over." She folded the parchment. "Do you believe him?" "No, but I believe the people want peace. Maybe I can give them that." Silence grew thick between them. "You'll go, then," she said. Kaelen stepped closer. "Not alone. I want you with me." Tula's heart twisted. "And be paraded through your marble courts as what? A war bride, a savage prize?" He flinched. "As my equal." Her voice was quiet, bitter. "They will never see me that way." "Then let me change how they see." She looked away. "You belong to this forest, Tula. I know that, but I don't belong anywhere unless you're beside me." For the first time in many moons, she cried, and he did not speak again. She left before dawn. No note, no words, just the drawing he'd once given her, folded and left in his sleeping hands. Kaelen found it as the sun rose. He stared at the image of her face, now smudged by time and ash. He folded it again, tucked it into his coat, and walked alone toward the south. Seasons passed. The Elunak rebuilt. New trees grew where fire had eaten. The sapling on the ridge reached higher than a man. Children were born. Songs returned. Tula rose to lead them, though no title was ever given. She hunted less, but fought when needed. She healed, she taught, and sometimes, when the wind shifted, she would look to the south and whisper his name. Kaelen wrote once, a letter that arrived with a white feathered bird. "I have spoken your name in halls that once denied it. They listen now, not all, but some. It is enough. I do not ask you to come, only to remember that my path was shaped by your courage. I carry your fire. Always." She burned the letter but kept the feather. Years later, when the sapling finally bloomed, petals of red and gold open like fire reborn, children asked what tree it was. Tula only smiled. "It is the kind that remembers." The tree bloomed for 10 years. Its petals, red as coals and gold as memory, dropped gently to the earth each spring and returned each fall with new branches. The roots burrowed deeper into sacred soil, wrapping around the sword that had once struck it down, cradling the iron like a relic. They called it the heart bloom tree. Elders said it grew from grief. Others whispered it grew from love. Tula never told them the truth. She had grown quieter over the years. Not softer, never that, but her voice had taken on the rhythm of the trees, firm, slow, certain. The warriors still called her Hawk Daughter. The children called her Grandmother Tula. Though she had no children of her own, she had lovers once or twice. But none stayed, not because she could not love again, because a part of her had never left the ridge. She did not know, at first, that Kaelen had died. The message arrived late to winters after his passing. A traveling healer from the lowlands brought it with her, a folded scrap of parchment sealed in wax. It bore no crest, only a broken wing carved into the seal. Inside, a short letter to the Lady of the Forest, Kaelen, once Prince of the Crown Lands. Passed in peace beneath the olive trees of Valamir. He was loved by the poor, the scholars, and the orphaned. He taught music to the blind and planted trees in every village he visited. He died of illness, not war. He left no titles, no heirs, only a song sung in your name. May the wind carry him home. Tula read it once, then again. Then she sat by the heart bloom tree until the sun set and rose again. And she wept that spring. She left the forest. She walked alone, as he had done once, through the whispering pass. Her cloak tattered, her hair streaked with silver. She followed no map, only the fragments of stories she had gathered. Villages greeted her with curiosity, then reverence. They knew her by his letters. They had heard the songs. In a fishing town by a quiet river, she found the olive grove. It was not grand, no monument, no stone, only a single tree planted on a hill, marked with a wooden plaque that read, "Kaelen, he who chose peace." A boy passed her as she stood there, carrying a flute made of reed. "Did you know him?" he asked. She nodded. "He once drew my face." The boy smiled. "He said you saved him." Tula smiled faintly. He saved me, too. She spent 3 nights in the grove. On the 4th morning, she buried something beneath the olive tree, the white feather he had sent her and her spear. When she rose, she did not look back. Years later, the people of the southern valleys would tell stories of a forest woman with storm-gray eyes who walked into a village, sang a single song, and left behind blooming seeds that never withered. They said the trees bowed when she passed, that birds followed her like memories, that she spoke to the wind. Some called her a spirit, others said she was a widow of a war that the kings tried to erase. But the Elunak knew better. They said Tula had returned to the forest, to the ridge, to the tree that remembered, and one day, when the wind was strong and the air full of petals, she was no longer there. Only her footprints, only silence, and the faint sound of a flute.